This one right here, smart blocks from imported PDFs. Now, there is some caveats that we have to actually point out very clearly here. Okay, this is from an imported PDF, and that's how we're working it. Okay, what happens when you import a PDF? You lose the intelligence because it's a PDF. It generates PDF layers. It does not generate layers that are conforming to your AutoCAD standards for the office. You need to be very aware of that, okay? And with that in mind, let's take a look and see how that works. Okay, let's go ahead and close this out. Save changes, no, and let's look at smart blocks conversions here. Okay, and this has been already converted from a PDF. Okay, as you can see, if I select an object and I go properties, that's what I was talking about. If I look at the layer configuration, we do have some layers already in here, but we have these created. These layers right here are coming from the PDF conversion. So when you actually select convert to generate PDF layers, this is what it's talking about. Okay. I would do some experimenting and see if I can actually get it to, you could actually get it to actually default or switch it over to your Office standard layers. But I wouldn't guarantee that, okay? Maybe we'll create a blog about that later if we find a solution, when we find a solution, okay? So need to be very aware of this, okay? So the actual command that we're looking for is going to be in inserts here under blocks. You'll see the search and convert, which you have two options, the detect and convert, and you have your search and convert. Let's take a look at detect and convert first. Okay, it's actually giving you a dialog box. There is a restriction on the types of objects that you can that it will select. Here are the types of objects that it will select. It's restricted to these. Okay, be careful. This is still under development. We see a lot of great things in the future, but be careful. As you can see, and we're going to start with this one right here. It's showing me that there are two of these. If I look at the drawing, yes, there are two, but no, not really. There are three. So if we select the object, set the settings here, look what happens. It's selecting the two. There's a third one. It hasn't selected it, okay? There's also a little tab up here that should look very familiar to you guys. This kind of looks like the excerpt compare and the drawing compare dialog boxes that we've seen before that have been kind of been introduced slowly but surely into the AutoCAD environments, okay? So if we have to actually go ahead and say convert here, we can convert these into whatever it is. You will also notice that it's selecting these lines, and there's 22 of those. What the heck are those? Well, once again, you need to be careful because that's a hatch. It actually recognizes the hatch for some reason as a block, as a possible block, which is not. In this particular case, that's a hatch, okay? You will also notice that if I select doors, there's 3 doors selected. We can actually page just like in the other tabs for other utilities such as the excerpt utilities, and it will page us through whatever selections are there. But notice one thing, it selected these 3, but there is in fact a fourth. It should have at the very least defined this as a secondary set of blocks, but it didn't. It just ignored it completely. The other thing that is actually interesting is it did recognize and the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I said, you know, maybe it's because it's got a very fancy kind of a frame block in the block here, but no, it's not, because I have the same kind of frame here. You see that? So if I select the set, it tells me 2, and this is the, remember, it will recognize double swing doors, which is recognizing these 2. But it does not recognize this one for some reason. Once again, we're talking about something that is under development, okay? There are a couple of other things that you can do. For example, you can actually come over here, and in this particular little icon is primary options. Okay, you can change primary or edit primary. This allows you to add to the selection or subtract from the selection. Or in this one, you can select another type of object that you want to be actually looking at, okay? So that's what these 2 are going to do. We're not going to get into it too much because I do think there is a better way of actually doing this, okay? So let's go ahead and X out of this here. You have to X out of this one. Let's go ahead and close this one here. And let's go ahead and look at this a little bit further. And we see that we have this little box here. That's not a box, it's a rectangle or a square. Okay, that is really looks like it's defining the 18 by 18 square concrete columns. Okay, so we can actually come over here and say, okay, search and convert. We're going to search and convert for this particular item. Okay, once we have that selected, we hit the enter key and it automatically selects all of those shapes that conform, all of those other shapes that conform to the original that we're using as the template to search for. Okay, notice also you have this gear here. If you open the gear, it's telling you to include existing blocks. So if you have blocks already defined in this particular drawing, you can actually include those if these are already part of that. Okay, or and also rather include text variations, which is going to be very important in the next demonstration that we're going to have. But for now, we're looking just at the particular little square that becomes our column. So we'll say convert. Okay, in this particular point, it's going to tell us that it's using the geometrical center. The geometrical center happens to be right there. That's the geometrical center. It's talking about if you combine several objects that you are using to define this block, it's going to look at the center of I would call it something like I don't know, the center of all of those objects combined rather than the individual center of each. I can actually turn it and say, well, I don't want that. I'm going to select it myself and I'm going to select it to be that. Okay. Now automatically it switches it over to that very specific spot and we say, okay, is it going to be part of an existing block? And it will list all the blocks that are there. Okay. Or is it going to be part of a new block, which is really what we're going to be looking for because this is a column, or let's call it square column. Okay. And then we can say we're going to place these columns that we're going, or block that we're creating right now in the layer A column. So it allows us to go ahead and place it in the columns, okay, in the columns layer. The other thing that I want you to see is you notice that the include text variations is grayed out. This whole section is grayed out, which is, once again, we're going to see how that works in the next demonstration. Once we have that all that done, we'll say convert, and everything has been converted to a block. But look at the interesting thing. It didn't change the color. It didn't even change a lot of the things we actually asked it to change. The only thing that it changed is that when it created that particular block, it put it on the A columns layer. That's all it did. But really, we want to see this in the proper color. Right now, it's going to be plotting as white. And if you don't have anything assigned, any thickness assigned to that white color, we got a problem. So how do we fix that? We right click here and we go over here to the, oops, sorry, give me a second. Select the block here. Right click and go to block editor. And in block editor is where we do all of the work. Let's go ahead and create and select, oops, sorry. Block editor. Okay, let's go ahead and select that. Go to block editor again. Select the item, right click properties. Okay, and in properties, once again, here's the problem. Okay, it created the block, but it created the block in the A columns layer. It didn't do anything to the geometry itself. That's what it's doing. So you need to be careful about that because you need it to conform to your office standards, correct? And for that, you need to come here. At this point, this is now now being drawn according to our office standards. Save changes to the item, say yes, close this, and there you are. All of your columns are now in the proper color, which makes it in the proper thickness. Okay. Now